Hey, what's going on guys, it's Sarge, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at Inaros, one of my favorite tanks in Warframe. So drop a like on the video if you enjoyed, and let's get started. Now, to get Inaros, you need to do the Sands of Inaros quest, which is given to you from Barokatir every 2 weeks. So you can get him guaranteed almost every time by just going to Barokatir, and you can get his quest, which is really simple to do. It's not very difficult, and I won't spoil the quest at all for any of his lore or anything like that. So this Warframe itself is pretty wonky. He does have weird stats as he only has health and no shields, which is good in some ways and bad in others. Now, some of the goods when it comes to that, he is able to do a lot of missions that involve getting rid of shields because he doesn't have any, so it won't affect him. And he can also use the rage mod really well because every time he gets hit, he will regenerate energy back towards himself. So that's really good. He has a really good mod to go for it, and his stats are really good with a 2200 base health at max. He has no shields at all, so you don't need to worry about shields or any mods that have to do with shields. His armor is at 200, so it's pretty average for of all the Warframes. His power is at 150, so you can put a prime flow on it to get a lot of extra energy. His sprint speed is at 1, so it's pretty average. He has the 2 D polarity slots and 2 dashes for his Exilis and his aura, so you don't have to use much Forma. He's one of the only frames so far that does have a polarity in the Exilis slot, so you don't need to use as much Forma as any other Warframe, which is good, so it saves you a lot of time. Now, his first ability, Desiccation, he just throws out sand, like a blast of sand, and just hits a whole bunch of enemies in his radius, and he will stun them, making them cover their eyes, and they will get their health taken from them and they'll be given to you. Now, this ability is pretty commonly used to just stun lock enemies and keep them in place, and you can finish them off using your finisher move since they will be open to finishers. This is really common ability to be used. It's very easy to use, and it doesn't cost much energy if you put a lot of efficiency on it, which is good. Now, his second ability is one of his more overpowered abilities in my opinion, his Devour, which allows you to just keep one enemy in place and you're able to just soak in all the power from them and steal their health, being able to drain them of their life force and giving it to you as healths. Now, if you actually devour all their health and kill them completely, you will get a sand clone version of them to fight for you as its own specter, which is good. So it does have its own use outside of just healing you, and it's one of its most common abilities to be used. Now, his third ability, Sandstorm, and no, we're not making any Darude Sandstorm references here. This ability is pretty much a crowd control ability for him. He can't throw the enemies around in circles. The farther his radius, the more enemies he can actually hit. And this can just throw away enemies in every direction, keeping you away from the enemies and having a nice wide open space to do other abilities and to just keep targets from like defenses and stuff like that and keep the enemies away from them. So it's a really good ability when it comes to crowd control. And his fourth ability is kind of a little more complicated. It sacrifices all your health, or at least a good portion of it, as more armor towards the Warframe, which in some ways is good because it will give you a lot of extra armor. It will make him extremely tanky and almost impossible to kill unless you're fighting a whole group of enemies that are like level 100s, level 200s. It will take a long time for him to kill you, but it does take away a lot of your health, so you're gonna have to use your first and second ability to actually get your health back, or just get energy orbs in general. Another use you can get out of this is kind of like a trinity in some ways, where if you shoot the armor at another enemy, you will regenerate health back, which is really good. So if you see an ally that's about to go down, you can easily sacrifice 25% of your armor to actually shoot it out into an enemy, and then they'll regenerate health as the enemy's losing health. So it's kind of like its own two-way ability, which is good. So it does have multiple uses outside of just giving yourself armor, and it can really help out a team if they're in close quarters. Now, building Inaros is pretty simple. You just need to build out of his range, so his first ability and his third ability can be really useful. You don't really need power strength too much, so to start off with this build, I use corrosive projection to be able to kill enemies on higher ranks. Since he is really tanky, he can't go far in the end game when it comes to level 100s and 200s and stuff like that, so he is really tanky when it comes to it. I like to use steel fiber with vitality so I can make him as tanky as possible. Redirection is useless since he doesn't have any shields and it won't help him whatsoever. This will increase his health to over 4,000 if you have a near maxed out vitality, and you can get 400 armor by just using a steel fiber that's one from maxed out, which is good. You can use prime flow with prime continuity to get as much time towards your first and second abilities, since the longer you can keep them stun locked, the more you can heal and the more you can finish them off with your finishers. I use stretch and overextended so I can hit more enemies at range with the first ability and his sandstorm. I use rage so any damage I take will be given to me toward energy, since I'll always get hit on my health. And I use streamline so I don't have to use as much energy to use my first and third ability, so I can stay longer in sandstorm. Now this warframe to me is like a pure upgrade when it comes to people like Rhino and stuff. But Rhino is still effective in his own ways, but this guy can go really far into the end game when it comes to hundreds and 200s when it comes to how much enemies you're fighting also. This guy can walk in front of enemies and do a lot of damage, and he can take a lot of damage as well. So if you want a nice crowd control who can also take a lot of beatings, this is the warframe for you. So that'll be the video for today, guys. Don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay frosty.